Hi guys, welcome to this week's episode. Hope you've had a really good week and enjoying the sunshine in London. If you're in London, if you're not in London, I hope you're enjoying being wherever you are. So, I do a lot of shows. And I do see a lot when I'm on stage. Obviously, you're a bird's eye view. I'm above the crowd most of the time. And if I'm not above the crowd, I have a kind of panned vision of what's in front of me so I can see a lot. When you're in a crowd, you only get the perspective of what's in your immediate vicinity. So it's hard to know what's really going on. But actually, from a stage perspective, I see so much. Things that I wouldn't even expect to happen at a gig. I'm going to share with you some of the things I'm seeing. Some of them you might not even believe, but it's actually true. And I've seen it put off some of the artists that have actually been singing. So I'm now very conscious about what I do when I go to gigs and how I interact with people around me and also the interacting with the artists on stage. First of all, the filming thing. I have kind of seen now that there's now a culture that everyone films whilst watching gigs. And I think it's great because obviously it creates a social media buzz. But I have noticed that quite a few artists, particularly people who've been in the business for a long time, this is kind of a semi-new phenomenon. And so having phones out constantly being filmed can seem a bit unsettling. I know a few times flashes have gone off in the gig and it's put people off. Now, I'm very aware of cameras now, so I tend not to film too much. I like to be in the moment. And also it does take away from the gig when you're looking at the gig through a screen. And I never noticed it before, but actually now speaking to quite a few artists, I've realized that it's obviously a thing. Now with newer artists, I don't think they notice it so much because it's what's happened. It's like in their lifetime, people take out their cameras and they film at gigs. That's what they do. And obviously that's what I do because obviously I can show you the footage that I take. But I'm also now very aware that it can be and has been off-putting for artists. And also it can be encouraging because artists then look through the footage online, Instagram, Twitter, and get to see what their performance looks like from the audience perspective, which is great. One, for review and analysis, and two, it lets them know that the people are enjoying themselves, essentially. If you film it and post it, you want to know that people are posting things that are really good and really cool. So that's that. I have also witnessed fights. And I don't just mean pushing and shoving, I mean full-on fights, pulling of hair, punching, full fights. And I'm like, how do we get to this point? I know that gigs can be quite tight in terms of the space, and people, when they've been drinking, kind of lose their spatial awareness or lose their usual rationale. But I find it hilarious that on a few occasions I've seen like hair tugging, people actually going for fisticuffs. And I'm like, how weird and how strange is that? Unless something major happens where, someone actually steps on your toe and doesn't apologize, or, I mean, even that's not that big of a deal. But I've seen full-blown fights. So please, guys, do not fight. Again, these are things that people notice from the stage, and sometimes it may be a little bit off-putting. Thirdly, I have seen people do the funniest dancing and the funniest gestures in the planet. I mean, I've had people dancing like this, going like that, to pop songs, and I'm like, what are you listening to? Because it's certainly not what I'm listening to. However, I do find the freedom of expression and the difference in interpretation of what people are listening to very interesting. It also shows that we're all different and we all look at gigs and experience gigs differently. So perspective-wise, it's good to see people how they enjoy themselves. Thirdly, from the stage, I have seen people cry at emotional songs or, really kind of get deep into the music. And from my perspective, it's quite encapsulating, and I have to remember that I actually have to work, so I'm trying to keep my focus on what I'm supposed to do. But I do get drawn in when I see people in an emotional state, and I think it's such a beautiful thing that people can connect with music that deeply that it moves them to tears or reminds them of something really important in their life or gives them perspective on what's going on at the moment. And I, a few times I've felt quite emotional watching other people crying or watching other people feel taken by the music. And I do have to keep myself in focus. Lastly, what I see from the stage is, and it's my favorite thing to see, is people having a great time. And when you go to a gig, you don't necessarily think about what the artist can see because you just think they're there to perform and they're machines. But actually they see all of this stuff. And even me, when I perform to crowds. I'm very aware of what's going on in front of me. As much as I kind of get into my zone and I want to do a good job, a good performance, I'm very aware of how I can tailor my performance to actually suit the crowd so that they have the best time. And I think it educated me being on the stage as a performer and as an audience member, because I can see both sides of the spectrum. So I can see what it's like when I look out and see people enjoying themselves, and it makes me feel good. And I can also be in the audience and appreciate what the artist is seeing, and like try my best not only to enjoy myself but kind of engage with them so they enjoy themselves as an artist. There's nothing worse looking out into a crowd and seeing someone going like that and not really engaging with you. It's quite daunting to see, to be fair. So guys, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with the things we post. We post every single week. There's lots of exciting things coming. I'm going to New Orleans on Tuesday. I'm going to have the best time and I can't wait to share it with you. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. Also follow us on social media. We're posting loads of great content there. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Snapchat, we're also on Google+, so you can't miss us. Guys, thank you so much for watching and see you guys next week.